You're watching Forsaken Joe. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Enjoy the story. Let's begin. I knew that night would be a big deal. 50 years since Clarissa's family opened Burns' Table, the kind of restaurant people booked months in advance. I'd spent weeks helping with the planning, even though no one had asked me to. That's what I did. Showed up, filled in the cracks, stayed useful. But nothing could have prepared me for how that night turned out. My name is Jonah Byrne. I'm 38 years old, an executive chef based in Richmond, Virginia. I've worked kitchens since I was 16. I met Clarissa 12 years ago at a food and wine expo in D.C., and we got married 4 years later. I thought I was marrying into a culinary dynasty. Turns out I was just seasoning for the main dish. The gala was everything you'd expect from a family like the Byrnes. Spotlights sweeping the front entrance, champagne towers, waiters in white gloves serving oysters and truffle canapes. Everyone dressed like they were walking into a Vanity Fair shoot. I wore the same charcoal suit I'd worn to our wedding. Clarissa didn't notice. I was sipping a bourbon near the side patio when Malcolm, her brother, found me. The guy had 3 martinis in him and walked like he owned every inch of the place. Well, he slurred, grinning too wide. If it isn't the kitchen grunt. I turned my head slowly, hoping maybe I'd misheard. Sorry? You heard me, he said, clinking his glass against mine. Man of the hour. Too bad you'll never be more than just another pair of hands back there. No pedigree, right? He looked over my shoulder, laughing like we were old friends. But there was venom under the smile. I nodded, trying to play it off. Good to see you, Malcolm. Bet you thought marrying Clarissa would make you a real Byrne, huh? He chuckled. Sorry, man. No amount of knife skills gets you a seat at this table. I felt my jaw tighten. I could handle disrespect. I'd done it my whole life in kitchens. But this was different. This was family. Malcolm, I said, quiet and measured. Back off. Oh, you gonna cry? He mocked, holding out his drink. Come on, let's toast to the hired help. That's when Gerald stepped in, Clarissa's father, the man they all bowed to. Is there a problem here? His voice was sharp, his posture rigid. I tried to explain. Malcolm's had a few, just needs to cool down. Gerald's eyes locked on me like I was a stain on his white linen shirt. Don't raise your voice to my son, he said. You're a guest in this family. Guest? I repeated. I've been married to your daughter for 7 years. And still, he snapped, you're not one of us. I looked to Clarissa, standing not 10 feet away in her emerald gown, arms folded, watching. Not a word, not even a flinch. Just that blank, detached stare. That was the moment I knew. Later that night, back at home, our home, though suddenly it didn't feel like it. I stood in the kitchen I designed myself, every inch tailored to my craft. Clarissa stood at the island, still in her gown, makeup perfect. I'm not doing this, I said. You let them humiliate me. She tilted her head. You need to apologize. To who? My father, Malcolm, all of them. Or you can leave. Her voice didn't crack. Her expression didn't waver. Just like that, I realized how alone I really was. I didn't pack like a man who was leaving for good. Just the essentials. Jeans, shirts, my knife roll. No ceremony, no bags tossed on the bed. Just quiet movements under the dim light of our walk-in closet while Clarissa slept on the far side of the house, doors closed. The house felt cold that morning, or maybe I was just starting to feel how hollow it had always been. By noon, I was on a southbound train to Charleston. Clarissa didn't know I was gone until she woke up. My phone buzzed nonstop from the minute I crossed state lines, text first, then calls. I watched the screen light up on the seat beside me, letting them pile up. I didn't answer a single one. She left voicemails too, the same clipped tone I'd come to know too well. Jonah, we need to talk. Then, this isn't how adults handle conflict. And finally, if you walk away from this, you walk away from everything we built. What we built. Funny. I'd worked 18-hour days to fund her startup concept restaurant. She'd brought the branding, I brought the sweat. But somehow, she'd made herself the architect of our whole life. I checked into a small rental above a bakery in downtown Charleston. My old mentor, Chef Ronald, ran a boutique eatery just a few blocks away. We hadn't talked much since he retired, but when I called, he answered like no time had passed. You sound tired, Jonah, he said. Come by the kitchen tonight. I'll pour you a drink. I agreed, but I didn't go right away. That evening, I sat on the edge of the guest bed and opened the banking app we use to track shared business expenses. Old habit. I'd been the one managing our accounts for years. The restaurant fund was meant for things like produce invoices, bulk wine orders, seasonal specials. But a transaction caught my eye. $1,486.28. Greenford Resort and Spa, room service, Beachgara Suite. Charges? The date? 2 nights after I left. I tapped the line item and felt my stomach drop. Room service at 11:42 p.m., 2 entrees, wine, dessert, a bottle of Ruinart Blanc de Blanc. She hated champagne. Clarissa never ordered room service. She hated hotels, hated eating that late, hated breaking routines. I stared at the receipt for a long time. The lights of Charleston blurred through the window. Then, on instinct, I called Marcus. We hadn't talked much since he moved to Atlanta. He'd been my best man, but like most friendships after marriage, things faded. Still, he picked up on the 3rd ring. "Jonah," he said, surprised. "You okay?" "Not really," I replied. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course. You saw Clarissa last month, right? You said you had brunch with her at the Vineyard?" He hesitated. "Yeah." I swallowed. "Did she seem off?" He exhaled hard. "Jonah, look, I didn't know if I should say anything. Just tell me. I saw her with someone else," he said. "A guy. They weren't exactly being discreet." "What do you mean?" "They were kissing outside the tasting room. Some guy in loafers and a pink button-down. I thought you knew." I closed my eyes. "I didn't," I said. Marcus went quiet. "I'm sorry, man." I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. My throat was tight. "Me too," I said. "Me too." 3 days later, I drove back to the Byron estate. I didn't call ahead, didn't text. I still had a key. Clarissa never thought to revoke access, and I wanted answers, not another performance. The closer I got to the house, the heavier the air felt. It was a late afternoon in Richmond, muggy and gray. The kind of weather that sticks to your skin and makes everything feel twice as hard. I turned into the long gravel drive and noticed her car right away. Clarissa's obsidian black Mercedes coupe was parked sideways across the driveway, one wheel nudging the grass. That was off. She was meticulous about her parking, always backed in, perfectly aligned. Seeing it like that was like walking into a familiar room and finding the furniture rearranged. I killed the engine and stepped out. No other cars, no guests, just bird song and the distant hum of cicadas. The place was too quiet. I walked through the side entrance, the one that led directly into the kitchen. The house smelled like eucalyptus candles and something floral, oversweet. I noticed 2 wine glasses in the sink, still half full, lipstick on one. A tube of mascara rolled near the base of the coffee maker. Her heels were discarded by the bar stool. She was here. So was someone else. I moved quietly, my sneakers silent against the tile. I didn't know what I expected to find. Maybe her alone, pacing in guilt. Maybe some note on the counter, half-hearted and vague. Instead, I heard music. Jazz, low and slow and suggestive. Clarissa never played music in the house, said it cluttered her mind. I followed the sound toward the master suite, heart in my throat. The bedroom door was cracked open, the scent of perfume thick in the air, something citrusy and expensive. I pushed it open with my knuckles, and there she was. Clarissa, lying across the bed in a silk robe, one leg draped over a man I recognized instantly. Derek. He was shirtless, tan, with the kind of smile that looked better in dim light and wine-soaked photos. He was the sommelier Clarissa had worked with during last spring's Vineyard relaunch. I'd met him once, barely, at a fundraising gala, young, smug, the kind of guy who used tasting notes as foreplay. They didn't hear me at first. Clarissa was laughing softly, playing with the stem of a wine glass. Then she glanced up. Her eyes met mine, and for a second, I saw something flicker. Surprise, maybe. Embarrassment, but not shame, not guilt. She didn't scream or scramble to cover herself. She didn't apologize. Instead, she blinked slowly, took a sip of her wine, and said, "You're not supposed to be here." That was it. No panic, no remorse. Derek sat up halfway, frowning like I was a minor inconvenience. Clarissa didn't flinch. She didn't reach for a towel or ask me why I'd come. She just looked at me like I was interrupting a pedicure. Something inside me buckled. 7 years. Countless nights prepping in our shared kitchen, testing recipes side by side. Every dime I poured into our home, our restaurant, our lives. And now she looked at me like I was the help showing up on the wrong shift. I didn't say a word. I just turned and walked out. Through the kitchen, past the wine glasses, past her heels, past every room I'd painted or remodeled or fixed when she said the light wasn't flattering. The door clicked behind me, soft and final. I didn't cry, not yet, but I knew, deep in my bones, this marriage wasn't broken. It was finished. I spent that night in my truck, parked in the gravel lot behind an old diner off Route 5, windows cracked, seat tilted just enough to take the pressure off my back. I didn't sleep much. I watched the stars fade behind the clouds, listened to the occasional semi blow past in the distance, and let the reality of it all settle into my chest like wet cement. She was done with me before I even left. I just hadn't seen it yet. At sunrise, I called Marcus. He picked up on the second ring. "You okay?" "No," I said honestly. "But I'm getting there." I told him everything. What I'd seen, what she said, that look on her face. Like I was a stranger who'd forgotten to knock. He sighed heavily. "You're better off, man." "Yeah, but I need to understand just how deep this goes." That's when Marcus told me what he'd been holding back. "It wasn't just a one-time thing, Jonah," he said. "Derek's been around longer than you think. He wasn't just some vineyard flirtation." "What do you mean?" "She met him during those wine pairings last year. Remember when she started doing all those weekend vineyard consultations? That was him." I closed my eyes, jaw clenching. "You sure?" "Positive. My cousin works at the estate's admin office. Saw them there more than once, and not in a professional way. I didn't want to say anything unless I was sure." "Appreciate the heads up," I muttered. But that wasn't the worst of it. 2 hours later, I got a call from Clara, Clarissa's niece. She was 17, too sharp for her age, always quiet around adults but never clueless. I'd made her pancakes at Christmas and helped her build a wooden spice rack for a school project. She'd always been the one in that family I trusted. Her voice trembled when she called. "I wasn't sure if I should say anything," she started. "But I heard something I think you need to know." "Okay," I said, bracing myself. "Last week, Aunt Clarissa was on the phone with someone. I think it was her lawyer. She didn't know I was in the hallway. She said she wanted Derek moved in by end of July." I sat up straighter in the cab. "She said that?" "She said she was just waiting on the Jonah situation to wrap itself up." And then she laughed. My throat went dry. "That's not all," Clara continued. "There were papers in her office drawer, divorce stuff. I saw your name. She was planning to serve you before the gala." "So this whole time?" "She was setting you up to walk," Clara said. "That way it wouldn't look like she left you." The pieces started clicking. The cold shoulder, the rehearsed silence at the gala, the convenient outrage when I stood up to Malcolm. It was all part of the exit strategy. Clarissa had been rewriting our story in real time, casting me as the problem, the impulsive husband who couldn't handle family pressure. Meanwhile, she'd been plotting her fresh start with a man who knew nothing about building a life, only how to pour wine and flatter her in half-lit tasting rooms. But I wasn't going to let her control the ending, not anymore. It was just after midnight when I pulled back into the estate. I didn't bother killing the headlights. No one would see them anyway. Clarissa's car was still there, parked perfectly this time, like nothing had happened. Like the house wasn't soaked in betrayal. I stepped out and stretched my legs, feeling the stiffness in my spine from sleeping in the truck. I moved quietly, but not nervously. I wasn't sneaking, I wasn't breaking in. I was returning to what I built. The security system still blinked green. Same code as always. My code. I was the one who installed the smart locks, the sensor cameras, even the app that sent alerts when someone left the back gate open. Clarissa never bothered to learn how it worked. I walked through the kitchen first. Everything looked the same. Clinical, modern, untouched. The knives were still in the magnetic strip I mounted. The espresso machine I handpicked sat clean and full of beans she never learned to use. I paused only long enough to grab my wedding ring from the small tray near the stove. I'd taken it off before I left Charleston. Somehow, I knew I wouldn't need it anymore. I moved through the hallway in the dark. Upstairs, a door creaked slightly, our bedroom still occupied. I could hear the soft hum of her sound machine. the same one she insisted on every night. Ocean waves to block out reality. I didn't go in. I didn't want to see her, and I sure as hell didn't want to see him. Instead, I turned into the office. It still smelled like lavender and printer ink. Her laptop was closed on the desk, glowing faintly at the edges. I opened the bottom drawer where she kept miscellaneous receipts. I knew what I was looking for, and I found it. A folded sheet of resort stationery. Clarissa's handwriting. You make me feel like Jonah never could, like I'm the real me with you. Let's just make it through this next part. I'll be yours for real soon. Derek's name was in the corner of the envelope. I slid it into my jacket pocket. Then I found the file folder, divorce prep. She hadn't even hidden it. Her name was at the top, bold and centered. Mine was beneath it, plain and disposable. I took that too. Before I left, I opened the safe hidden behind a frame menu on the wall. I had installed it myself, back when I still believed we were building a future worth protecting. Inside were our joint tax returns, property records, and the original LLC paperwork from our restaurant. All of it went into my bag. When I reached the bedroom door, I stopped. Clarissa was asleep, one arm draped across the empty half of the bed. Peaceful, painless. I placed the wedding ring on her nightstand, right beside the letter to Derek. No note, no speech. She wouldn't even hear the door close. By the time she woke up, I'd be gone. And this time, I wasn't coming back. The motel sat along a quiet stretch of road just outside Charleston, the kind of place meant for truckers and couples with secrets. But it had a desk, decent Wi-Fi, and a view of the lake through the curtain if you squinted. Good enough. I spread everything out on the small table by the window. Receipts, printouts, the handwritten love note, copies of the financial documents from the safe, a duplicate of our restaurant's shared asset ledger, color-coded, every piece of evidence carefully organized, chronologically labeled, and backed up on a flash drive. This wasn't revenge. It was surgery. I made the call to the attorney just before noon. She'd represented one of my sous chefs through a messy divorce a few years back. Brilliant, direct, and utterly ruthless. When I gave her the situation, she didn't hesitate. "Do you have proof of financial infidelity?" she asked. "More than proof," I said. "I've got a damn portfolio." "Then let's get to work." We talked for an hour. She walked me through the steps. Asset freezes, restraining orders for business access, protective clauses for my stake in the restaurant. She'd seen worse, but she said something I didn't expect. "Jonah, don't underestimate her. Women like Clarissa don't panic right away. They perform, but once the image cracks, they get vicious." I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. "I'm counting on it." By the end of the call, the paperwork had been drafted. I signed electronically and uploaded everything to her secure portal. The bank accounts would be frozen within 48 hours. Our restaurant expenses, suspended. Business Venmo. Alerts redirected to a private audit folder. But before I let the dust settle, I posted something. Just one sentence. On my personal social media, where Clarissa rarely bothered to check unless she needed a flattering anniversary photo. "Clarissa, you gave me two choices. I chose the one where I walk away. Now you'll see what that really means." I hit post and turned off my phone. I gave it an hour. When I turned it back on, there were 17 missed calls, 8 from Clarissa, 5 from Malcolm, 2 from Gerald's office assistant, who must have been caught in the ripple effect. 3 voicemails were just static and pacing, and Clarissa muttering under her breath before hanging up. The last one? She'd found the letter. "You think this is funny?" Her voice spat through the speaker. "You want to make this public? Over what? A note? A fling? You think people are going to take your side?" Then her voice dropped. "You took private documents from the house. That's theft, Jonah. That's illegal." And there it was, the shift, from dismissal to panic, from silence to threats. She'd spent years building a brand on control and curated perfection. Now it was cracking, and she had no idea where the next blow would land. But I did. I'd waited too long, bit my tongue too many times. Now, I was done playing nice. I didn't have to lift a finger after that. All I had to do was watch. The first wave hit quietly. Marcus started sharing things. Nothing dramatic, just careful leaks to people who needed to know. Clarissa's cousin, who served on the restaurant's board, her college roommate, now a local food critic, a former investor she'd ghosted after getting her seed funding, Every one of them got a neatly packaged folder with timestamps, screenshots, account ledgers, and the love note. The second wave hit louder. The board called an emergency session 4 days later. Clarissa showed up dressed to kill, pressed blouse, expensive heels, her fake composure ironed on tight. She walked in smiling. She left 27 minutes later, white as a plate, holding a manila envelope. Effective immediately, she was being temporarily removed from day-to-day operations pending internal review. In other words, you're out, and we're not letting you touch a single decision until we figure out just how deep this goes. I didn't gloat. I didn't post another word. I just waited. 2 days later, Clara texted me. Clara, she's staying with some friends in Short Pump. Clara, they cut her off. Clara, it's bad. That was it. No extra detail. She didn't have to say more. Clarissa's family had closed ranks, not to protect her, but to protect themselves. Gerald was furious. Malcolm was humiliated. No one wanted to be tied to the mess. They froze her access to the Vineyard events, scrubbed her name from the GALA website. Her face, once front and center in every marketing campaign, vanished from the homepage of the restaurant's site overnight. She tried to contact me again after that, once through email, once through a mutual friend, once through Marcus. He called me around 10 p.m. She wants to talk. Not interested? She says Derek ghosted her. I snorted. Of course he did. She said he meant nothing. I leaned back in the motel armchair, staring out at the lake. She's not sorry, Marcus, I said. She's stranded. She asked if I'd tell you something. What? She said, tell him he's still the only person who ever really saw me. That made me laugh. Not because it was funny, but because it was so perfectly her. Dramatic. Scripted. Like she thought she could direct her own redemption arc. The next day I sent her a photo. My wedding ring, resting beside the folded love note on her nightstand. No caption, just the picture. Then, an hour later, I followed it up with one line. You chose. That was the last time I heard from her. No reply, no voicemail, no clever comeback. Just silence. I watched from a distance as the last pieces of her image crumbled. Her curated social media presence went private. The influencer partnership stopped tagging her. The restaurant's Instagram scrubbed every post she was in. She was no longer the face of Burns' table. She was just Clarissa now. Clarissa with a revoked title, Clarissa with frozen assets, Clarissa with a ghost for a boyfriend, and a husband she thought would crawl back. But I didn't crawl. I stood. I walked. And I never looked over my shoulder, because for the first time in years, the weight was gone. Her empire wasn't mine to save. And now, it wasn't mine to carry anymore either. Clarissa didn't stay quiet for long. About a week after the board removed her, her social media lit up with a carefully worded post. Soft lighting, tasteful blouse, a caption that oozed curated vulnerability. Sometimes the people you love the most walk away without explanation. But healing begins with truth. Thank you to everyone who stood by me. It got over 1,000 likes in 2 hours. The narrative was clear. I had abandoned her, coldly, without warning. She was the wronged wife who had no idea what went wrong. She blocked me before I even saw it. Didn't matter. I wasn't going to fight her on Instagram. Instead, I let Marcus post what needed to be posted. Screenshots of the Greenford Resort receipts, a cropped photo of the love note, the Venmo payments to Cork King, a time-stamped log from the restaurant's expense account showing multiple late-night transactions for personal use. He didn't tag her, didn't call her out directly. But people knew. The silence that followed wasn't the kind that Clarissa was used to. It wasn't polite, breath-holding quiet. It was sharp, surgical absence. Invitations stopped. Her industry friends moved on. Her name became a liability instead of a brand. 3 days after Marcus made everything public, I got a message from her lawyer. The divorce papers were finalized. I signed them that same afternoon in a notary's office above a storage unit in North Charleston. No fanfare. Just a quiet pen on paper, initials here, signature there, one last stamp. And just like that, I was free. I didn't cry, I didn't go drink or call someone to mark the occasion. I just walked out into the bright July heat and exhaled for what felt like the first time in months. I rented a modest house near the coast, not far from Charleston, tucked behind a stretch of weathered oaks and sleepy roads. It was quiet, clean. The kind of place where mornings came slow and full of light. I started running again, cooking again, just for myself. Nothing fancy, fresh eggs, crusty bread, tomatoes I picked from the little backyard planter. I'd go days without thinking about her, then catch myself halfway through a meal, realizing I hadn't spoken her name out loud in weeks. There was no drama in the goodbye, no shouting match in a parking lot, no teary reunion, no closure sealed with some poetic final line. Just space and peace. I told Marcus I wasn't coming back to Richmond. The restaurant would manage, the team was strong, my name was still on the LLC, but my soul wasn't in it anymore. That place belonged to ghosts now. I belonged to myself again. And that was the ending no one saw coming. Not scandal, not revenge. Just freedom. Just silence finally, without the weight of being married to a lie. It happened by accident. I was getting a tire patch at a little auto shop off Highway 17. One of those places that smelled like rubber and burnt coffee, with old magazines piled on dusty chairs. I'd just stepped outside to take a call when I heard a voice behind me. "Jonah?" I turned. Clarissa stood by the curb in oversized sunglasses, holding her phone like a prop. Her hair was straighter than I remembered, her makeup lighter. She looked tired, not sick or broken, just out of place. Like someone trying to blend into a life she no longer fit. I nodded once. "Clarissa." She gave a little laugh, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. "Wow, you look good." I let that hang for a beat. "I know." She blinked. I could see the words forming in her mouth before she spoke them. I was stupid. There it was, not "I'm sorry," not "I lied." Just that single word, soft and self-serving. I nodded again, not out of sympathy, just acknowledgement. "You were cruel," I said, calm, even, not angry anymore, just done. She flinched a little, as if she'd expected the word, but still hated how it landed. "I wasn't thinking clearly," she started. "There was so much pressure. Dad, the board, everything at the vineyard. You thought I was weak," I interrupted, "that I'd take it." She looked down, didn't argue. "I never wanted it to end like that," she said. "I didn't plan it that way. But you planned something," I replied. "And you made sure I'd be the one walking away, so you didn't have to look like the one who quit." Clarissa shifted her weight, glanced toward her car. It wasn't the Mercedes anymore, just a rental maybe, or something borrowed. "I've been thinking about you," she said quietly. "A lot." I didn't respond. She stepped forward like she might touch my arm, then stopped herself. "I'm sorry," she whispered finally. "I really am." I looked at her for a long second, not through her, at her, at the person I once tried so hard to love, the person I gave years to, and then I nodded once, turned away, and walked back inside the shop. Some apologies come too late. Some bridges don't need burning, they just need to be left behind. I found the knife while unpacking a final box from Richmond, one I'd forgotten about, buried behind cookware and broken mugs I didn't bother saving. It was wrapped in a dark blue velvet sleeve, tucked inside a wooden display box engraved in the gold script, "To our next masterpiece." Clarissa had given it to me on our 3rd anniversary. A custom chef's knife, carbon steel, full tang, razor edge. Beautiful, balanced, deadly. I remember how excited she was when she gave it to me. "A tool worthy of your hands," she'd said. Back then, I believed her. Now, it felt like a relic from a life that never truly belonged to me. I took it out to the cliffs just before sunset, a spot overlooking the water I'd found on one of my runs. Quiet, untouched, with nothing but the wind and the gulls and the hum of the sea. I sat on a flat rock for a long while, just holding the box. Then I opened it. The blade was still perfect, untouched. I'd never used it, not once. I struck a match, lit the edge of the box, and set it gently into the sand. It caught quick, curling up in slow orange tongues. The velvet burned fastest. The engraving blackened, then vanished. When only the blade remained, I carried it to the edge of the cliff and dug a shallow hole beneath the roots of a twisted pine. Not deep, just enough. I laid the knife inside, and I buried it. There was no ritual to it, no speech, no silent vow, just the weight of it going into the ground, like laying down a weapon, like letting go of a war I never asked to fight. Months passed. The house I rented by the coast became home faster than I expected. Not in the way Richmond ever was, with its clean lines and curated spaces, but in the way you learn the quirks of a place, the sound the porch makes when it settles after rain. The exact spot in the kitchen where the morning light hits your coffee mug. I cooked again. Nothing fancy, just food that made me feel human. Simple things: eggs and toast, roasted fish, peaches from the stand down the road. I ran, I slept, I read. And slowly, Clarissa faded. There was no single day it happened, no moment of triumph or revelation, just space. Silence that wasn't heavy anymore, rooms that didn't echo with memory, mornings where I didn't check my phone and hope for nothing. One morning, I sat on the porch, coffee in hand, watching the ocean blink under the rising sun. I realized I hadn't thought of her in days, not once. That was peace, not some grand moment, not a victory speech, not revenge delivered cold, just the quiet return of myself. And for the first time in years, it felt like enough.